thank you for being on, Dan. This is the first episode of our podcast where basically we're just going to give realtors like yourself a voice to basically be able to talk about their day-to-day life, their frustrations, everything they got going on. Everybody, this is Dan Hartman, one of our really good friends, mentor. He is amazing. I can't say enough good things about him. Dan's got a lot of experience in a lot of different aspects. He's a community leader. He is a farmer. You can talk about that a little later. He's a realtor. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's just, I can't say enough about Dan. So I'm going to pass it over to Dan and kind of let him introduce himself a little bit more.
Thank you, Isaac. It's a pleasure to be on the show today, and thanks for the opportunity to just have a conversation with you. So yeah, just been in the Smithfield community 21 years, just celebrated 31 years of marriage with my wife. We've raised 3 boys, and you happen to know, I think 2 of the 3 of the 3, and they went through the Smithfield School District and are out on their own doing great now. 2 of the 3 are married. And so yeah, I've just, as we became empty nesters, really felt the opportunity to, and a calling to get out and serve the community, serve not only the city of Smithfield as an elected official, but also on the board of KCRER, Kansas City Regional Association. And then from that, a lot of other opportunities through University of Missouri Extension Office, serving in that board and chairing that board. And then also just the state and national association being involved there. So blessed. The days are full, and just, service above self, as we talk about in Rotary, is kind of what my motto is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and get right into it. And I want you to kind of explain what drew you specifically to real estate? Like, what was your draw or the pull there to go into the real estate field?
Sure. I'd always been interested in real estate, and not only interacting with realtors through my wife and I's moves through different states. At that time, I was working for Kinko's, is now FedEx office. And I just always liked the way realtors interacted. It's really about listening. It's about understanding whether they're going to list your home or you're looking for a home. And I just thought it was a really great way to serve, and every situation's different in real estate. Every opportunity to list a home or work with buyers, and so it's unique and it's different day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my fiance are looking for a house right now, and you've been phenomenal with communication, and you're just paying attention to what we need, and without us even realizing what we need. So that's been really awesome. Could you talk a little bit more about kind of how your beliefs in what you do plays into how you run your business, or how you do what you do?
Absolutely, yes. So I'm a man of faith. My wife is a woman of faith, and we really felt like belonging to a church, and serving in that church, it builds a foundation, and then really taking the biblical principles of business and life and applying those. And, so in working with you and Megan has been really unique, because I get a chance to see a lot of different homes. Certainly when you're a listing agent, that's cool because you get to work with the family that's transitioning, but right. It's even more of an opportunity working with buyers because you get out and see the different homes and the characteristics of the homes. But it's about listening to, you and Megan are listening to what the buyer's needs are, and then really beginning to kind of formulate a plan around that. And so that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah. So what specifically do you enjoy about that type of stuff?
Well, I think first of all is the human interaction. I just love working with you. I love working with our buyers. Different seasons of life, right? Your first time home buyers, or somebody that's maybe been there but is needing to upsize because their family has grown, or maybe they need to downsize because their kids have moved out. And so really understanding, or maybe it's a family member has passed away and they've inherited a piece of property or land. So it's really fully understanding the reason for those life changes, right? I mean, that's the greatest thing about life, right? Is the seasons of life, the changes of life. And so it's just neat to be able to fully understand that and be fully immersed with our clients and our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially like with you, it's just been so good to have your wisdom in on the whole process. And I feel like obviously not all realtors are the same, and I feel like you're way more involved and you care deeply and immensely, and I really appreciate that about you. And
Yep. Thank you.
we've been very blessed with that. But I guess kind of moving on, I guess transitioning a little bit back to kind of your job as a real estate agent in 2025, what are some of the hardest things or the things that you experience more that's difficult in performing your job?
Sure. So, I started in late 2017, and really got rolling in early 2018. And of course, in 2020, we had a bit of a pause with trying to figure out exactly with COVID, and then it kind of took off like a rocket ship. So I think the interest rate market was really low. People were antsy, and they were wanting to get out and see property or buy some land and build. So the interest rate market really was conducive to that. But it couldn't, those good things can't last forever, right. And so it reset. We truly have been in a recession, going on a third year in real estate. The challenges that we face today are, number one, I believe, I think the statistics, 50 to 60% of homeowners have a current rate under 3% or under 4%. So today the rates are 6.5%, 7%. So truly the real estate market has been reflective of the interest rate market. And inventory really hasn't changed a whole lot. We're at the lowest inventory in history. And because of that interest rate, that lower interest rate, people were hanging on to houses longer. So although we're beginning to see some signs of increasing inventory, at the end of the day, we need more supply because the demand is there, even because people have got a job change, their kids are grown and they want to downsize, or their family's expanding, they want to upsize. So that's probably the hardest piece to be at today, is the psychological effect of that. I think people are coming around and understanding that, listen, I understand I've had this great rate, but I need to make a change. And so that's probably one of the hardest things, is understanding that, communicating that, and the fact, though, that the value of owning real estate is still one of the greatest wealth building opportunities long term. And we've seen that increase over the last 4 or 5 years, specifically in 21 and 22, where we saw 20% appreciation, which number one was unhealthy. It was great for those who owned homes, but that appreciation caused higher price points. So really communicating, understanding that there is a way to be a homeowner, but it's a lot tougher entry today than it was 3 years ago, let alone 5 years ago.
Yeah. That's interesting. So when you talk about supply, and then I also want to go back to the point, because I know that real estate has been really big for you and your family, building wealth as well. But when we talk about supply, do you have any solutions, or do you have any ideas on how maybe that could be made better from what you see in the market in your day-to-day?
Sure. Yeah. So we were in the peak of selling real estate back in 21, 22. We were about 6.5 million homes. The last 3 years, we've been right at 4 million, or just a shy over. But what happened with the recession in 2008, 9, and 10 is the home builders really took a bath. I mean, they really took it hard, and so we've never really caught up. And I think there's somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5 million homes that we haven't built. So that's caused a little bit of a problem. 3.5 to 4 million homes short in the United States. It was as high as 5 million plus. But so I think it's thinking outside the box, working with municipalities and cities and counties to see if we can loosen some of the building, not necessarily the building codes, but the building setbacks and different things like that, going to more ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units. maybe having more townhomes or apartments that give ownership opportunity, right? Not just about renting, but ownership opportunity. And so I think all of those things together, working with not only the national, the state, and the local government, but thinking outside the box of more than just your traditional single family home will solve the problem.
That's okay. That's really interesting because there's a lot of people who like talk and they say, oh, well, we're going to go do all these things. You're actually doing that with all the laws and stuff. So it's really cool to see that you're trying and you're pioneering that industry there and trying to get the laws changed and
Absolutely
moved. And what's that process look like? Because I don't know what that process looks like. So I'm sure that's probably a long process. Could you speak to that a little bit?
So it's really about advocacy, and it's about, first of all, building those relationships at not only the local level, the state level, and the national level. I didn't have on my radar that I was going to become an elected official or run for office. So in 21, somebody had asked, hey, you'd be great at this. I was like, I hadn't really thought of that. So I ran for office in 21, was elected. At that time, we had 2-year terms. And then we moved into, we brought to the public to go 4-year terms, because what happens is in most municipalities, city and county elections, it's every 2 years. So 1 year, one set of aldermen or councilmen's being elected, the next year, the next set. So we wanted to kind of expand that out. And the voters voted overwhelmingly in the city of Smithville. And actually, I just saw this in Platte City, that they got on the ballot and were successful to go from 2 to 4 year terms. So number one is that first 2-year term, you're trying to learn all about what it is to be an elected official. But it's also being very involved in getting to know the development directors, getting to know the directors in the counties that surround you, and just understanding what their zoning requirements are. So that's number one. Number two is listening very carefully, interacting. I have the opportunity to interact with our city manager, our mayor, along with our directors. And so when they have a question, they're calling me, or when I get some information I think is relevant to home ownership, I'm able to, share that with them. So that's a big part of it, is just really being involved. I jumped in with both feet, absolutely, eyes wide open, and just built those relationships. And I still continue to build those relationships. It's about advocacy. It's not about just one thing. It's about understanding who they are, what their position is. And I do have the opportunity a lot of times to get a little bit of build rapport, because I am an elected official. They're an elected official. But that's not only at the local level, that's at the state level. And then every year as realtors, we go out to the National Association of Realtors. They call it NEXT now, which is our legislative conference coming up at the end of May, beginning of June, and we'll be able to interact with our Congress, House and Senate members.
In D.C.
That's in D.C., yes. Yeah. So that's advocacy at a heart is what it's about.
Gotcha. So it's speaking for the people that really don't have necessarily the voice that they potentially can. So you are the voice for them.
That's exactly right. The voice for them. And as realtors, we obviously don't have sides. We believe in certain things, but we come together is we call the color purple, because it's the blue and red.
Right.
We together have a strong voice, and we're one of the largest trade associations in the United States, with over 1.5 million members that come together and advocate not only at the local, state, but the national level.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Do you want to talk about any more of that? Or because I'd like to get into a little bit, because I think there's a lot of people that are out there that also, because you've built wealth in real estate, a lot of people are wanting to, especially around my age, wanting to build wealth through real estate. If you're comfortable, would you want to talk a little bit about how you got started maybe, and kind of what that would look like today if somebody's a first time just now getting started?
Absolutely. So I always noticed it kind of raising our boys. And then my youngest son came to me about 2-3 years ago and said, Dad, I really want to get started investing in real estate. Not only was he already a homeowner, and he bought one of the most competitive times in the history of real estate, really was in that 21, 22 time frame.
And just real quick, why it was competitive? Because of COVID?
Just because of COVID, and because there was so much demand and there wasn't enough inventory. And so there was multiple bid situation, 15, 20 bids for a home. You really had to be working well with the co-op real estate agent, the mortgage professional, and so there was a lot of different opportunities to do so. But he came to me and said, Dad, I'd love to get involved in investing. And so we started investing in a house in Smithville, kind of in an area we know, and created not only did we improve the home, but we created a short-term rental from that. And then about a year later, we had another opportunity to do the same. So it's right time, right place, right opportunity, but it's also goals. It's desire. It's not for the faint-hearted, because you kind of put everything on the line. That's whether you're an investor of 1 or 2 or 100. They started somewhere, and there's a goal of doing that and saying, hey, I want so many in a given time, and sometimes you meet those goals. But as real estate gets more expensive and as product gets more expensive to rehab that home or refurbish that home, you just have to factor all that in. But it's just jumping in with both feet,
Right.
a lot of faith, a lot of prayer, true sweat, blood, and tears through that process.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is.
If you want to do something like that, what I'm getting from you is it's a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, but after you do it, it's the best thing to be able to build wealth with.
It is. And there's plenty of opportunity today, from hard money lenders to private money lenders to the bank. You just got to have clear, concise goals, understand the industry, and get a mentorship. And I watched and helped some investors, so that was a good education process through me. Yeah. And then, I've always said, if somebody would have come to me at 24, or I would have come to them and said, I'd love to learn this. So there, whatever age you are, right? Yeah. He's 24. Right. I was turning 50. And so that opportunity is just by somebody asking and getting mentored and having a goal and jumping in with both feet.
So now, I guess moving on, since that, and I'm sure that was probably a hard process to be able to build wealth that way. And it's definitely an interesting process. When you work so hard, obviously things don't work out.
Right.
So how do you necessarily, I guess, respond to how things don't work out? Because when you try your best and then you still fail, it's very difficult. And so how do you respond? How have you learned to respond over your course as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's how I was raised, and hats off to my mom and dad who are in South Central Nebraska, that they said your response is more important than what happens to that situation. So I'm disappointed, if we lose a deal for my clients, I'm disappointed for them, but I try to be an emotional stability for them, listen. There's been opportunities where we've seen tears and rejoicing. And so I think the response is number one, just having a good attitude, knowing that, hey, we learned from this. It is difficult, because especially when somebody that is wants my clients to win and you can't win, that's tough. And that's the same in listings. Winning a listing, today I think it's more competitive than it ever has been, and you truly have to be a professional through all that. And I am just like everyone else. It hurts, but you also know that, hey, it just wasn't the right fit for that client, and you do your very best to wish them well. And there's been opportunities where I haven't won a listing, but I've been able to be on the other side as a buyer. Right. So you just try to know that everything works out for its good when you have a positive attitude towards it.
So it's having that response, but also being positive when you fail, viewing it more as a learning experience, or it happens for a reason, than, oh, I just lost that, or I failed.
That's exactly right. So it's really having an abundance mindset, right? I mean, it's easy to have a scarcity mindset, but I had our current president of Missouri Realtors, Bobby Howe, challenging me day one in this business. It said, you've got to have an abundance mindset. There's always going to be opportunity. Even if you lose the deal, you want the best for that realtor and that opportunity. So that's having an abundance mindset is important.
That's interesting, because I think it's very easy, especially in kind of our culture today, that the abundance mindset is definitely not a thing. And it's hard. I feel like, I guess it's a very difficult thing to get your head in that space. Mm-hmm. What is kind of some things or tips that you've been able to practice or work on when achieving the abundance mindset?
I think number one is taking a step back and taking a deep breath, and again, celebrating your victories. And you even, I don't necessarily celebrate your failures, but you go, okay, what have I done different? And you just try to understand. And sometimes folks will give you that feedback and sometimes they won't, and that's okay. That's just how it is. But I think it's just remembering that God's got our back.
Right.
Our spouses, our siblings, our families got our back, and it's okay to have a loss, and it's going to be all right because we're taken care of, right? God doesn't promise us an easy life, but He also says that if you follow me and you're faithful and you believe in me, you have the opportunity ahead. So that's just having that abundance mindset again.
That's awesome, and I feel like also too that plays a lot into gratitude.
It does,
and being very grateful for just the little things in life. And you want to kind of speak on that because you're one of the most grateful people that I've met, and it's been really cool to watch. And I've learned a lot from you in that about how you're able to be grateful consistently. Right.
Yeah, I think it's a daily, sometimes a multiple times a day reflection. And there'll be times I'm at the farm or I'm out driving that I'll just have a moment of like, hey, that's a great sunrise, or that's a great sunset, or I'm so thankful that I have breath and life and opportunity, and I'm thankful for people. And taking the time each day, even if it's one person, sometimes it's multiple people, but it's one person to say just a quick message, whether it's a phone call or a text. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for believing in me. And the same applies to is you're getting ready to be married here soon to your spouse as well, your future spouse. My spouse is just like, hey, I screwed up. Thanks for forgiving me, or So that's just it is a mindful process of being grateful as much as you can every day.
And it seems like appreciating the little things from what I'm picking up from
absolutely
is like so critical to be able to have that.
Yes,
that's really cool. It's good to know. Now, we're going to transition on a little bit more onto kind of the tech side of things. And as you know, we are on this journey that's been a 3-year process of building a real estate AI. But what importance do you think in your job, in your day-to-day job, technology plays and can play as stuff evolves and gets better? Like, how do you view the real estate tech today? And then how important do you think it is right now? And then how important can it be with the adaptation of AI and everything moving to kind of this artificial intelligence phase?
Right. So, I've shared with you and Spencer before the statistic that the average realtor spends about 90 to 92% of their time in administrative and 8% in prospecting. And that's one, if they're not on a team, don't have an administrative assistant or transaction coordinator. So it's really shifting. I think AI is going to help us shift that statistic. I mean, I would like it to be 80-20, honestly, 80% prospecting, 20% administrative.
You, right?
And because that's key to our life. It's not just about the connections, but it's about working on those relationships. And I think what you're doing at Dual AI, and as well as others, are trying to figure out how to make sure that we're becoming more productive. And technology over the years, they'll sell it as this is the best thing that'll help your life. But I think truly we're at an age where what you're working on and what others are working on will help us be much more productive and less time on the administrative tasks.
Absolutely. That's kind of our heart, right? Is to make that. How much of a benefit do you think that would be? Is, let's say, in your business and what you do, if it's we cut that time from 60% instead of 90%, how much more productivity or even, I guess, monetary wise would you see from that time being cut, like, I guess, by 30%?
Right. I think it would at least, if not a third, it would be, half better in the production. Again, the administrative tasks are necessary, but having that background support to listen to our conversations, log what we're doing, organize it, have reminders. Right now, that's a manual process, or maybe it's a voice recorder, or it's a text message to yourself. So I think having AI do that will make us much more productive and allow us to produce more and serve the customer even better.
Absolutely. Do you see that as kind of, what do you think the adoption of the AI technology in the real estate world within the next 5 to 10 years would look like? Do you think it will be high, or what do you think?
I do. I think it's going to be high because it's moving so fast, and there's so many great minds like you and your brother working on that. Certainly you have the development background, the developers helping with that, but I think it's listening, implementing, going back and listening, improving. But the speed that we're going to be able to do that today has never been recognized in any other time in history.
Yeah, I completely agree. I couldn't agree more. I think we're in one of the most exciting times in history with the creation of artificial intelligence, just the capability of how much everything that will unlock.
That's right.
And even when you read the articles about the supercomputers and like solving these medical problems or solutions that they've come up with through AI has been pretty amazing. And we'll just wrap up. We're going to, again, transition here. I want just your best advice for an agent trying to get into real estate, like a new agent, say they're around my age. What advice would you give to them that would be like solid advice for them?
Sure. No, that's a great question, Isaac. I think it's first of all recognizing what type of brokerage you want to be involved in. Do you want to be involved in a very busy brokerage? Do you want to be involved with a team? Do you want more of a boutique brokerage that I've been at with Show Me Real Estate for the last almost 8 years? And so it's recognizing what you want to be a part of. And then secondly is a mentorship, having somebody along to mentor you and say, hey, these are the things that worked well, having somebody to be able to bounce off. And that's the unique thing about our business, whether it's a large brokerage, medium-sized brokerage, small brokerage, it's what you as an individual agent feels best in, right? I can't tell you if you were entering into real estate, right off the hand until you kind of fully understand where you want to be. And some people thrive to be in a big team, a big brokerage that has a lot of education opportunities. Some thrive in a medium and some thrive in a smaller brokerage. And I felt like I've thrived specifically because I wanted to learn about land and development and working the nuances of all that. But that's not necessarily means that the next agent coming up wants to do that. So
what you're saying is like pick the type of people, or not people, the brokerage that you want to be involved in. That's the most important thing that you would see.
It's one of the key things. And then picking somebody that's going to look out for you, help you grow, be a sounding board. And so that'd be my number one advice.
Awesome. That's great. And then lastly, I know you got to go, so we'll wrap this up quick. But like, do you have any final words of wisdom? It was really been great getting to talk to you and sit down and hear everything that you have wisdom and knowledge on. Do you have any final words of wisdom, whether that's on investing in property or buying a home for the first time, or as a new agent, what's something they need to hear? Do you have any final words of wisdom to give today?
Yeah, I think it's recognizing your strengths, your weaknesses, knowing that every day is an opportunity to grow, stretching yourself to the maximum potential. And that 100% will be different for you than me, than somebody else at a different age. So it's really just doing something each day that's going to help you grow and help you serve your clients better. And never losing that abundance mindset. And then, finally, a favorite quote of mine that I like is watching our language, watching how we talk to ourselves, watching how we externally communicate, because we do bring about what we talk about.
That's like words are powerful.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, that's great. Dan, I appreciate you coming on and really appreciative of you and who you are as a person. And I'm glad we got to have the conversation.
Thank you, Isaac. It was my pleasure and appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks.